Hello, everyone. Today we join the program Historical Discourse, a show dedicated to history broadcast at 9 p.m. every Sunday on Mr. Hung's channel. The US dollar and Saigon currency were the two most important currencies for us during the war, but they were not the only ones. To acquire weapons and ammunition, we had to either transport them from the north or purchase them from neighboring countries and then move them into the south. However, transporting from the north was extremely costly due to intense American bombing with very high risks. After purchasing, there was no guarantee the goods would reach the south as they could be lost en route. For this reason, we opted to buy from neighboring countries and transfer the goods to the south. The question now is which country was the most convenient to buy from, and what currency was used for these transactions. At that time, Prince Norodom Sihanouk, the leader of the Kingdom of Cambodia, a country sharing a border with Vietnam, held a special fondness for Uncle Ho. Additionally, Sihanouk greatly respected his teacher, Professor Tran Van Thinh, who was then the ambassador to Cambodia. Furthermore, Cambodia had a significant advantage, the port of Sihanoukville. For these reasons, we chose Cambodia's Riel as the intermediary currency to purchase necessities, weapons, and ammunition. But that was only the first step. The question then arose, how could we obtain Riel? And once we had it to buy goods, how could we transport them back to Vietnam? To address this question, the Central Committee sent Comrade Duc Phuong to Cambodia, posing as a wealthy merchant from the land of pagodas. He was provided with foreign currency to support business operations, enabling him to acquire Cambodian Riel. Alongside this, he worked to build relationships with high-ranking officials. On the birthday of Cambodia's Minister of Security, Duc Phuong gifted him a brand new Mercedes to win his favor. In return, the minister gave Duc Phuong the car he had been using as a keepsake. Though unintentional from the day he received the minister's old car, Duc Phuong became known as untouchable. Driving that car wherever he went, the police dared not interfere, only offering respectful salutes. As a result, the vehicles transporting goods and money under his oversight passed through smoothly. The port of Sihanoukville was critically important at the time. It was the hub through which we received substantial aid from allied countries. The reason for using this port was that land routes were heavily disrupted by enemy attacks, and the sea route from Vung Tau had been exposed in 1965. Transporting weapons and supplies was tightly controlled and extremely difficult. The grease money paid to generals was often exorbitant. For instance, transporting 1 kilogram of weapons or other goods cost $1 per kilogram. This price fluctuated depending on the route and which general controlled the area. At times, some generals refused money and demanded weapons instead at a rate of 30%, meaning if we supplied 10 rifles, they took 3. Moreover, after acquiring weapons and goods, we had to rent warehouses to store them. Renting these warehouses required the use of counterfeit money. Despite these high costs, we had no choice but to accept them. When calculated, the losses from enemy attacks on our traditional transport routes were even greater, so we had to grit our teeth and endure. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until 1970, when Lon Nol overthrew Sihanouk's government. Difficulties began to mount. Sihanouk had supported Vietnam, but Lon Nol was backed by the Americans. As a result, he did everything in his power to block our supply routes through Cambodia. Lon Nol did not know exactly how much Riel we were holding in Vietnam, but he had enough information to know we were using large amounts of it to meet our needs in Cambodia, such as bribing soldiers and officers and purchasing goods. Consequently, Lon Nol ordered a currency change and sealed off the entire border to strangle the Riel we held. The currency change was kept secret and only announced on the day it began, February 24th, ending on March 10th, 1970, just 1 week before the coup. As a result, our forces had no way of knowing in advance. Fortunately, to carry out the currency change, Lon Nol had to print materials related to the process, such as notices specifying where and how the currency could be exchanged. These notices inadvertently revealed Lon Nol's plans to our side. He chose the most advanced and trusted printing press of the time to produce these materials. By sheer luck, the manager of this press was Tran Tri Nung, a Vietnamese expatriate. His father, originally from An Giang, had lived in Cambodia for many years and became a senior official in Cambodia's national treasury. Both father and son were our operatives. Previously, our forces had planned to place Tran Tri Nung in a key position at this printing press, both for business purposes and to print our confidential documents. To this end, we sent him to Hong Kong to study printing techniques. Upon his return, Tran Tri Nung was regarded as a top expert at the press and was given full control over its operations. But the question remains, why, given his background, did Lon Nol's regime not suspect him and continue to trust his printing press? Simply put, his father had lived in Cambodia for many years, and Tran Tri Nung himself was married to a Cambodian woman, leading the Cambodian authorities to believe he had been assimilated. This miscalculation by Lon Nol allowed us to uncover their secrets. However, the situation now became far more complicated. We learned of Lon Nol's plan to change the currency, but the problem was that his forces had tightly surrounded the printing press to ensure the secrecy of the operation. So how could we get this information to our forces outside no one could enter or leave? Writing the message was one thing, but delivering it was an entirely different challenge. So how could our forces learn of Lon Nol's currency change in time to exchange the money? And with that, today's Historical Discourse program comes to a pause. Thank you all for your attention and support. Please like and subscribe so our channel can soon reach 1 million subscribers.